Welcome back to this Signal episode. Has been a while, at least skipping a week feels a while because I think we've been very constant over the past few weeks. So if you're connecting to Signal for the first time, this is our space for me and Ramon to curate a bit of the news out there in the space of AI and the future of work, because we feel there is so much happening every week that bringing a bit of Signal in the noise is going to add value to your daily life and, of course, keep you up to date with trends. So welcome back, Ramon.
How are you, Andre? It's actually, I was reflecting before, simply by preparing the episode, I get to learn a lot of stuff, right? There's so many things going on that if we hadn't kind of this space reserved and hadn't kind of the responsibility to curate this for the audience, I would have missed a lot of stuff. But crazy. In 2 weeks, a lot of things happen.
Yeah, it's true. And I think some of those insights we also were able to bring it into the company every now and then, improving processes or ideas. So I'm very thankful. Even if it would be only the two of us without any audience, I think is lots of value. But yeah, great to see that we are back after a week where we disconnected a bit. As you posted on LinkedIn, we were on a great offsite with the management team. Good for you because you stayed longer with the entire team that joined for the remote week. But I had my father's duty home. But yeah, it was a great way to disconnect and spend quality time as we are not as much in person as we wished for.
Totally. I think it's for companies in our kind of stage where you're still kind of finding your way, but probably also at later stages, I don't know. But this opportunity to just stop and reflect every 3 months, I think is very helpful because otherwise, we have our heads down to work and we kind of keep pushing in one direction. But I always feel that as we stop every quarter, check what has happened, reflect on the strategy, we always come both energized with more of a team feeling and then more energy, but also with new ideas, right? I think that, there's typically not enough space for the strategic discussions in startups like us that want to go fast and ship fast and move quickly. And I love the opportunity to just discuss for 2 hours on the same topic without any pressure or agenda
No, indeed. And I think there is a lot of value in also reassess and refocus because, as you say, we sometimes start going in a direction or multiple directions at full speed. I think it was great to challenge each other's assumptions on a few things and increase focus on other. So very, very thankful for the team to speak up and challenge everything every now and then.
What were maybe some of the highlights for you, like anything that you have changed in the way you think about Nova or about the opportunity ahead, like any?
Yeah, I think the discussion on how the B2C can be the moat towards the B2B was a very interesting one because I think we really dive deeper into the volumes required to really become a data moat. And that has challenged a bit of the perspective around what is the monetary value of a new member, how can we reduce friction to access Nova, and also think bigger in terms of volumes. And I would say even how we finance the community. I reflected this last couple of days on how little sponsorships were part of our discussion and how professional we have been around scaling that part. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about now that Maria is on a maternity leave to spend a bit more hands-on time with the team on these topics. So yeah, I think that was a good reframe.
Yeah, I think sometimes in my case, I believe that you and we are always tempted to go and run or chase multiple opportunities, no? I think we sometimes, as founders, we are optimists, so we tend to underestimate the value of focus on just doing one thing right. And Nova has this temptation where there's always lots of low-hanging fruits around you.
Yeah.
So I love that the team was also willing to challenge us and say, hey guys, but we cannot scale a recruiter and the membership and test price and do a zillion things at the same time. what's really most important for the company in the next 6 months. Let's double down on that, and then we can leave some open opportunities, for the future. Also, because if we ever raise a big amount of money, then we might have more resources. But when resources are limited, you have to place your bets and move full in, because otherwise I think it's easy to spread too thin.
No, indeed. And I think with AI, it feels like the 0 to 1 becomes easier. So you always tempted to say, okay, let's try, or let's experiment, or we can do that quite fast. But it's really the opportunity cost of having energy and mental clarity. I was speaking to a founder that has a very simple business model, and I was so relieved to be in his shoes, where he wakes up in the morning and there is only one metric. So I'm happy that we are getting closer and closer to that reality. So I think step by step.
Totally. And I think the other benefit for me, other than clarity and this piece to have good discussions, is also the team feeling. I think we managers are sometimes a bit lonely, and I think it's probably for you is even more important, based in Italy. So regaining a bit of the energy of feeling part of something bigger, I think is always great. And I know that the management team appreciated that.
No, for sure. And moving on to, I think, the focus part, I think we have been already quite good in the first half of the year, especially with the tech and product resources. I think we have shipped now some other core features to the Nova recruiters. So I think having said no to some distraction has already brought some value. Maybe you want to share what has been the latest, or your most favorite features from the latest sprints.
I think what I'm most proud about is that for the first time in our history, we have been able to ship features that clients were demanding in order to sign deals, right? I think that wasn't the case before. We were simply kind of building the platform. But now we move into a space where we can meet clients, get their demands, and there might be features that unlock entire deals. And I think we had never been this close between sales and product. I think one of the best examples is that we got a cool scale up that wanted to do very custom messaging to the candidates that were targeting really, really top tier candidates, and they really wanted to kind of craft each and every message. Our platform was more built to kind of create templates and kind of adapt with variables, but you didn't have an easy way to go kind of one by one crafting the exact message, although it was a feature that was asked by maybe some executive search firms and others. And I think it took the team something like 10 days, like a little bit more than a week, from the moment the client told us to the moment that feature was shipped in production. And in between, we launched a few things like, for instance, we did an in-between on the very first day where they could do that from an MCP, although they couldn't do that from the interface, where it's a bit easier for the messaging part. So very excited about that. And I think that's the future of B2B software, is that you are able to listen and build features and very quickly.
Some of our clients, the most demanded role in the last couple of months has been the forward deployment engineer, just for that reason. So I think we don't have such a role. We're not as deeply integrated, and there are not too many complexities around the integration part. But I think it's an important link that we're establishing as a new routine.
Talking about FDEs, I think the other cool thing we can mention from the Nova world before we move into the news is that we hosted here at the Nova House actually the first two events. One of them was an event on AI for founders. That was fantastic, where we had discussions on how we were using AI, what was working, what wasn't, how we were learning. That was very cool. And then the next day, we hosted our first hackathon in the Nova House with our partners at Karumi. Pablo came here to Signal a couple of weeks ago. And they were basically doing a hackathon for FDEs. So they brought like 30 or 40 people in the office, some of them Nova, some from outside of the network. They showcased their product and they gave them a challenge. It was an open source software that they needed to adapt to so that their agent would do a demo. And it was quite nice. Lots of great talent. You could see very cool conversations. Very young people that are very into the space. I could see students maybe third, fourth year of uni, studying math or computer science, but already in this world, learning about these events and so on. That was very cool. And they spent a whole day here. I think they left something like maybe past midnight. They left the office. Now we thankfully have kind of a remote automatic locker and the alarm and so on. But yeah, it was very cool. And I think I think the future of the Nova House is a lot through this. Today we have an event this afternoon with partners. Tomorrow we have the official launch of the Nova House with the community, which is more of a party. So yeah, lots of very cool things happening in person in Madrid in these weeks.
Yeah, no, it's great to become, I think, a bit of an ecosystem venue for everything around talent and tech. Now that Madrid is becoming more and more of a European hub, so it's great to have such a big and nice house to welcome them. Amazing. But then, I think from the Nova world, we cover a bit of the highlights from the previous week. I think we can dive into the tech world, what's out there. Of course, this is not a major news because it's already been a few days that Fable, our former Midas, Fable 5 is back. And it's been, I used most of my complex projects. There was a deadline. There was yesterday. I thought it was ending for the subscription, but they extended it for a few more days. So that we have a few more days of free run. But I think it's impressive to see the output difference in a few cases. Yesterday, I shared with you the talent survey, the Nova survey. Last year, I think you spent, I don't know how many hours to cross-reference everything.
Many.
Yeah.
Many. Just 1 year ago, huh? It's crazy. And you gave it to Fable 5 and you got it in 5 minutes, huh?
Yeah, and it was interesting because you not only get the data insight, you're able to do way more complex
Q&A, you know,
and I linked it to the Metabase, so it would trace the email in the type form with the data of the member, and then you can slice much more the data in, and that's what
the cohort analysis and so on. I actually did. I used Claude, but to build Python.
Yeah.
So that with Python, I kind of combine the results of the survey with all of our data and then build the analysis. I remember doing that actually. I think I was part of it still at the hospital when Inés was born. Exactly 1 year ago. I was like there in the nursery kind of finalizing the analysis for the board. So yeah, crazy how the world has changed in just 1 year.
It's true that maybe compared to last year, we also have a better, because without the Metabase infrastructure on one side, I think there is a merit to having data that is much better accessible across the company. Thanks to
we didn't have that exactly. I had to, I think, download things from here and there, and now I just read the summary, but I'm curious to maybe do a bit of Q&A with Claude to the entire thing and learn more, because some of the analysis were very good on who were the personas getting more value, less value, how, of course, engagement and usage is correlated with NPS.
It was interesting to see that some of the most satisfied cohort is currently founders, which is something we haven't doubled down on. It's true that we have good circles of entrepreneurs, and we do have, but yeah, my intuition is that entrepreneurs tend to be always on a hunt for something, whether it's hiring, it's investors, it's customers. So they are proactively using Nova, and they take the most
to connect. Exactly. I think that I would say among our ICPs, of course, expats, right? But I would say founders and salespeople are probably more eager to connect than most of other profiles. Maybe product people as well a little bit, because product is a bit of a weird role.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of entrepreneurs coming to an events and very cool. I haven't used much Fable. Or not to the extent I wish I had used it to, because to me it's a bit hard to grasp the difference between Fable 5 and Opus 4.8. I'm seeing it relatively similar, though there's of course probably it's more accurate and so on, but it's hard to compare, or the types of tasks that I do. sometimes it's hard to compare. But I was listening to a keynote by one of these Claude members of this technical staff, no MTS as they call them. I think Static or one of these guys that posts on X. And I love it was a very short keynote, maybe 10-15 minutes, on how kind of Fable was kind of a bit different to other models. And there's a couple of things that stayed with me. One is that Fable is incredibly good at pointing you towards your blind spots. Like whereas Opus 4.8 and the previous kind of work with you towards a goal, but we're not as good as looking at where might be the things that you were not considering. Fable was able to abstract itself better to the things that you don't know, right? And I was prompting the other day Fable to actually kind of analyze the whole way I use Claude, all my skills and so on. And I actually found some decent things. For instance, I don't have any kind of log versions, right? So, and a skill I might change today without, and might get worse, and I cannot get back to the previous, right? So it suggested me to bring most of it to Git. I had a few, not jailbreaks, but some vulnerabilities in kind of pasted keys and so on here and there in some archives. So it was pretty good actually, and I liked it for that. But I can't say I have used it too much to grasp the whole value.
I haven't either, and I think Williams was complaining about how fast the usage runs out for him on the tech side. I've tried Opus and Fable for the same task on an Excel model. It's Fable reasons deeper and it was much better at hypothesizing and grasping the bigger picture.
I think that's the way, no? So you give the same task to the two and see what happens. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's the way. And I think what's exciting also this week is that I was going to say tomorrow, but it will be today as we release this, because we're recording this on a Wednesday. But tomorrow, Thursday, July 9th, GPT 5.6 comes out. And in the benchmarks, which are always, you never know how much you can trust them, but their Sol and Sol Ultra models would be apparently more capable than Mythos, which is crazy.
We'll see. But yeah, exciting to see the competition there, and we will benefit in terms of costs. Talking about costs, I was reading this very interesting approach on how Claude has used the orchestrator scheme, where majority of the tasks are conducted on a Sonnet 5 model.
Mm-hmm.
It escalates to Fable 5 only for highly complex and strategic tasks, and they were able to reach 96% of the output of Fable and 46% of the cost. I think that's going to be so important because otherwise we are not credits.
Particularly is moving to this world of loop engineering, no? You probably have read a lot about this. I think we discussed it briefly in the previous chapter, but it's this idea of, instead of prompting your agent, giving it goals or creating a way so that it prompts itself. And I think you have to put Frontier or the best model you can as kind of the orchestrator, or the advisor, or however you want to call it, to check whether the goal was met or whatever, and then try to have the cheaper models run the thing. Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach. And I think we have been discussing this already for a few weeks, but the more this advances, the more I believe that we are going to end up with open source, even local models on the laptop or on the phone for most tasks, right? Because you don't need. I'm already seeing that I don't need Opus 4.5, 4.8 for many things. Sonnet is more than enough for many tasks. So. Yeah, and as the Chinese models are coming, I think that's the future. And I think, as we have discussed, also this puts pressure on the frontier models, right? Because they have to keep growing super fast. And one piece of news that I read this week that was a bit worrying, I would say, is that Sam Altman has offered Trump to take 5% stake at OpenAI as a strategic company. Already, US took a significant stake at Intel, and I'm always in this debate on whether states should be part of or not of these kind of companies. In Spain, for instance, we have the current government having taken a 10% also stake on Telefonica, and I don't love it. I think that having the government intervene so much into the private world is in the end a restriction of liberties and freedom. And I think it also instigate corruption. No, like it's very easy that people would play weird games to just make money out of these kind of things, having confidential info and so on. So yeah, I'm a bit worried about this whole intervention that we're seeing from the US in general on what companies can release or not release. And yeah,
No, I think it's gonna be at the end. I don't think we can remove governments out of the picture because it really becomes a productive factor of the economy. Actually, it was Claude that asked the government in the US to ban certain players from China because they sued Alibaba. I don't know if you followed the news. So basically, Anthropic realized Alibaba was distilling their LLM by creating millions of fake profiles who were constantly querying the model.
and doing reverse engineering on the answers, no? And training it.
It's gonna be very intertwined, though I believe there is a geopolitical risk where Europe needs to be prepared for. It's not ideal, but it's never gonna go away because it's just a huge weapon.
Yeah, but I mean, you can still kind of enforce laws and maybe even ban models. But do you need to be owner of the company? Like, why would that be? I don't know. I don't really understand. I mean, they do it typically to protect, like the Chinese wouldn't buy them, like, but China's not going to buy OpenAI, right? Like, that's not going to happen, and you could probably avoid such a transaction. But I don't really see the value, the point into. I think I see the point for OpenAI. I think OpenAI needs to have confidence in its IPO, and if you have the government supporting 5%, then it's good for them. But I don't see the value for the taxpayer in the US to be owning 5% of OpenAI, particularly given the debt of the US, which is just crazy, the public debt. So
yeah, no, it's interesting. Let's see whether US joins that table.
Cool. Maybe, yeah. Related to, now that we're into geopolitics, now we have the NATO meeting. We haven't discussed ever defense and geopolitics, but maybe we can discuss it for a few minutes and see what's your point of view. But yeah, we have, I think, countries in Europe, and I would say Spain in particular, that are not willing basically to pay for or to put the same amount of resources into their defense. Trump was saying a number that I believe is a bit arbitrary, this 5% of GDP. I think I don't know if it's too little or too big. I think it was a bit false, because I think he was asking countries to have that level of expense for year 2035. But by year 2035, he won't be at office. He cannot be at office. I think he has capped for 2 years, two periods of 4 years, right? So it's a bit of Trump putting arbitrary numbers and so on. But I was reading an article yesterday that I liked, and I believe I agree with, is that in Europe, we are kind of concentrated on other types of debates for diversity, equality, climate change, all of that, which is great and it's important. But the price to pay for that freedom is to have to be able to defend yourself, right? Because then suddenly Putin comes in or Iran comes in, and that's something that you don't like. And if you don't have those defense resources, so yeah, I believe that the particularly left politicians in Europe are a bit, or tend to be, or at least in Spain, very naive on how the world works. Like, there's going to be bad people, and some bad people will try to do bad things. It's as if you said, okay, let's not have police, right? Because we're all good, right? Why do we spend money in police? Like, why do we have police at all? The military and the police, to me, is exactly the same on another level of problem. So if you don't want to have the military, why would you have a police, right? But you need the police effectively because the human by nature are sometimes bad, no? So yeah, that's a bit of my point of view. I think Europe needs to wake up, and we need to have our defense and our army, and we cannot just pretend that the US will always defend us from the enemies.
No, I agree. And if you look at some of the latest, I read just yesterday that finally there was an agreement in starting developing long-range missiles in Europe without extra EU intervention. They will be produced in the UK with the support of France and Germany as first supporters. So I think this US led by Trump has been a bit of a wake-up call because we could have seen where things might go with the wrong leaders in place. So yeah, despite the local debate, I think on a European level, steps are being taken. So yeah, see how fast we are.
And I think we probably need a military of the EU, right? At some point, like sooner rather than later, right? Because otherwise, it's very inefficient to have each country doing its own thing, buying some weapons. Like, I think we are coming to a point where, yeah, we all love our nationalities, and I'm sure that the Catalans feel very Catalan and whatever. But the reality is that the threat is not there. The threat is not Italy versus Germany versus Spain. The threat is that we are very different at some core things with China, and the whole of Europe is becoming less and less relevant. So, yeah, I wish that Europe wakes up and goes towards more integration. Though, yeah, both this extreme left and right are probably pushing in the opposite, right? So, very complex political problem, and I'm not sure if even the Europeans want it, but I hope that we can convince them that we actually need it.
Yeah, I think when the needs arise and people get scared, because now everything is still a bit on a theoretical level, a bit far from home, let's say. I mean, Ukraine is not that far. But when things get serious, people understand that survival is at stake. So while we play politics, people will have different opinions. But when things, when you have to decide whether to go to the war front or have the technology.
But I wish we wait for shit to hit the fan. It's gonna be too late, right? Because these things to build a defense, build army, build tech independence, build energy independence, that takes years of investment, and that takes very forward-looking politicians that are not just seeing the next 4 years, but are actually caring for the long term. And I guess it's very hard for European politicians to think that long term. At least in Spain, it's crazy how short term people can be. Actually, I was telling the other day to a friend that the only bad news about Spain reaching kind of the final stages of the World Cup is that the whole political discussion that we have a big problem of corruption and a lot of stuff is shifting to just people discussing the World Cup, right? Although I love football, as you know, it's I'm like, maybe it would be better that we have lost and we discuss more relevant, important things than just football.
True. Let's see how things evolve. Because I think leaving this topic aside now, US has bombed again Iran yesterday night. I mean, things are not stable, so I think we will need to move fast already.
Yeah. Maybe there was some good news in Italy, no? If we move more to startups, fundraising, and rounds, impressive, no? These
these Bending Spoons, they are a highly dense company. Actually, there are plenty of
talent dense, no?
I'm
not sure if they are dense, but they are talent dense.
talent dense. That's why and they're talent dense. They employ lots of novas. But Bending Spoons is basically a 13 years old company that was coming out of a pivot. These co-founders met while studying in Denmark. They kicked it off with the first startup
with the money left in the bank, it wasn't working. They pivoted towards acquiring the first app. And since then, now they reached the Nasdaq IPO, which for an Italian tech company is the biggest ever. It's a historical record. They listed at 18 billion US dollars. The price increased on the day 25 billion. So, I mean, it's incredible. I think
it's bigger than most of the public companies in Italy, no? What's the name of the stock exchange in Italy?
Yeah,
MSCI, no? Or
exactly. They would be among the top 20. They are bigger than Leonardo, which is a huge infrastructure war, heavy engineering company. So it's a proud for the entire ecosystem. And more importantly, they generated a bit of 100 millionaires, which now live and stay in Milan. So hopefully we can see the spillover effect of that capital and expertise and new funded companies. So it's a fantastic news for Italy.
Totally. I think those are the generational companies that, there'll be tons of founders, no, creating companies from Italy now. And yeah, we have been discussing for years that the Italian ecosystem is significantly behind Spain. Yeah. We're seeing some good news, no? Because, I mean, on the first, Bending Spoons is bigger than any company that has been out of Spain. I think the biggest in Spain are maybe valued around a few billions, maybe Idealista and one of these. 20 billion is significantly bigger, like it's an order of magnitude bigger. But also we have been seeing great startups out of Italy, no? Like we discussed, I believe, this challenger to Legora, and I think that's super cool that that's built out of Italy. Like that's not the typical startup you would expect in Italy with a 50 million Series A, something like that.
It was a 50 million Series A. I think the ecosystem is piling up. Also, we wrote welcome on board Airbnb to a huge funding round. So yeah, I'm very proud of the latest from Italy. There is still a major gap in terms of available funds and network. But as more founders succeed and they come back to Italy or they build out of Italy, I think the ecosystem is everything that was missing. So very hopeful for what's next.
Yeah. In Spain, we have also some good news is that June was the all-time record of rounds with almost 1 billion in just 1 month, like 900 million invested in companies. We had the big rounds of, we discussed here some of them like Thecker, I believe probably already, I don't know if it was June or maybe May, the Factorial round, like there were a few big ones. And yeah, I think Southern Europe is waking up. And I'm particularly excited about the amount of Spanish founders that are building also out of San Francisco. I was talking to this last week to our dear Ivan de Rabon. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I was speaking about him in London at our Oxford event because there were a few of his friends who told me about his journey, which is crazy.
He has built this company called Convexity or something like this that is building kind of an ERP for supply chain, and it's very cool what he's building. I was speaking to him, and I was doing a few intros because to some friends in VC, because I think he's the kind of founder and the kind of company that can do very well. His CTO has a GitHub repo that I believe is something like an alternative to LangChain or something like this that has 50K stars. And that's the CTO of the company. And then he has Ivan, who is just crazy talented person, went to Colombia to do a very similar master's to mine. But then, you know that Ivan was an actor when he was young? I didn't know this. A Disney actor. Like, the guy is just full of surprises. So, yeah.
You know that he emailed, I don't know how many CEOs in New York. The Columbia Master was sponsored out of a cold reach out. He did. He's a genius. Like,
yeah. Also in terms of marketing, go-to-market, he's a genius. I believe he got his internship at Google or Microsoft by just going to the door with a big kind of a board and just saying something like "hire me." And got hired actually. Like, it's just crazy. So good luck to Ivan and Convexity. We'll follow their journey
for sure. It's good to see Europe accelerating. And we still maybe don't have a frontier model that is keeping up with the American ones. At least I haven't used any. But I think on a few fronts we are catching up step by step.
Totally. And maybe if we want to discuss a little bit of future of work, there were a couple of good things on my side that I liked this week. One of them was this post by a guy I follow have been following for the last few months. I haven't met him yet, but I got an intro the other day and I'm trying to bring him to the podcast. His name is Carles Reina, and people call him even co-founder. He claims to be employee number 4 at 11 Labs. In any case, he's basically running the whole go-to-market. And these guys have run from 0 to 500 million ARR in a bit more than 3 years. So wow. It's just super crazy growth. And basically, he posted on how he negotiated his compensation package with Matti. So basically, when they started discussing, he told Matti what was his equity stake target. Nobody knows, but my guess is that it's probably ahead of 1%, right? I think very early stage you might get up to 1%, but probably he negotiated something like maybe 3, maybe 5, no? Probably a big amount like this. Matti told him like, no way. And basically the way he make it work is through a milestone-driven approach. So basically he proposed, if we reach this amount of ARR in 2 years, then, we backtrack my compensation to that. He has never taken a single dollar of commissions and has kind of driven the whole compensation to equity. And these guys now, if they're doing 500 million, last time the valuation multiple was 33 times ARR. That's something like 15 plus billions. So even a 1% of 15 billion is 150 million. So this guy is already in the hundreds of millions. And yeah, I think it's a great example of how to negotiate a salary in early stage, because everybody wants more salary, right? Like I also want more salary for myself. But I think if a candidate comes to us and gives us, hey, I can lower my salary, that I don't care. But if I achieve this amount of ARR, you give me this, I think it's very hard to counter-argue that as a founder.
Yeah, especially because if the milestone is ambitious, you would say you deserve it. You have built so much value for the company. It's true that what was smart is to backtrack as if the strike and everything was already given. I think that's a smart way to put it. Yeah, I think
that they hit the revenue not in 2 years, but in 1 year, the revenue target. And apparently the guy is crazy. He says he was having 60 plus meetings per week.
Yeah.
Like just doing sales like crazy. Yeah, I think it's a lot of ambition, a lot of hard work. You put half an hour to each, and then boom, boom, boom.
12 meetings per day.
You do 50 or more, and crazy story, and very inspiring, I think, for the ecosystem and to all of our listeners that might be looking to enter into the startup world. I think this is a very nice way to negotiate compensation.
Yeah, especially because if you negotiate a higher salary, a big chunk goes to tax. So if you can afford covering your living costs and you believe very much in a startup and your impact, everything you can push to equity is much better.
And also, I think gives you a longer period of doubt, because we have seen it internally. Whenever we have had expensive people in our payroll, if they don't perform well, those are the first to go out, right? So unfortunately, that's the truth. If you want to earn a high salary, you have to deliver a lot of value quickly. If you are okay with having maybe a bit of a lower salary and compensate for equity, you're probably going to get a bit more slack, right? Because you are not that big of a problem for the company.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a good lesson and I think also a good reminder of how important is every single hire, because that guy has changed the game. Like it brought in one of the most excellent game of sales and go-to-market, and that could have really changed the trajectory of the company from growing steadily to what they have achieved. It's really impressive.
And the quality of people he hires and the way they do sales is very different from anything I have seen on a playbook. Actually, Carlos always says that he hates people that only work with a playbook. He believes that each company and each thing needs his own way. And they have a very different way of selling. They have super high quotas. They have 20 times a salary. So you have to sell 20 times your base salary to hit your quota, which is a very high number. That's a number typically more of very successful SaaS companies like Salesforce, where it's, let's say, relatively easy to sell big packages. In the startup world, like the quota to salary is something closer to 10 more likely. But they have been able to hire great people, put super high ambitious targets, and of course they have a fantastic product, and they are going with the trend. But yeah, kudos to Carles and the team.
Yeah. I also read the news there an update on the entry-level roles dynamic that we're witnessing, where the forecast is that entry-level roles, especially back office or easy to automate, let's say, they are disappearing, and the people that will replace that in lower numbers and volumes will also earn 20 to 35% less. So I think the debate around is the junior people still needed or not is still very open. I don't think we have seen a clear answer in the market, but looking at statistics and trends, it seems that there's going to be a disappearance on especially some industries. So yeah, I don't know which industries will bear the highest cost, but it seems it's happening as we speak.
Yeah, that's always part of the debate. We had that debate last week with the founders as well. Like, okay, what is the new role of the juniors? As I always said, I think it also, what I'm saying is more of a polarized workforce where the top juniors you can see will be crazily good, and you can see that in the latest batches of YC that are increasingly younger. But at the same time, a lot of young people have their brains completely destroyed by a combination of TikTok and ChatGPT, and they are unable to read and think and concentrate and focus. So yeah, I think the world is more and more polarized, which actually brings me to the other piece of news that I read that was cool. That is the latest survey by Lenny, who surveyed about 6,000 people working in tech, and basically saw kind of a bifurcating workforce where half of the population was feeling amplified and excited and, like superpowers. I think that's a bit how we are feeling, you and I at least at Nova. Versus then a lot of people, particularly 14% feeling destabilized, like not knowing whether they will still worth it or not, what was the future for them. Increasingly more burnout, less optimist on their careers, both on fear of job losing, but also just being expected to do more for the same pay and maybe unable to understand how AI could help them with that. And I think that's the sign of times, like more polarized world, more polarized productivity. And to me, was really not a surprise. One thing that was surprising, though, is that founders were the happiest. That's interesting. Like the smaller the company, the better the feeling working for that company. And founders were between engineers, designers, researchers, the ones that were happier with their lives and work.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can relate, and it's not maybe as surprising. I think in the talent report last year, also researchers were happy because they chose their academic endeavor. But with a founder that has purpose, you choose the people you work with, you have a bit of the thrill of the hunt and the milestone. I think it's true that it's very stressful on some levels of life,
when you look at the fundamental drivers of doing something meaningful to you that is aligned to your values and who you are, that is the fulfillment of the individual. Stress and everything is huge, but I don't think it's on the happiness level. It makes it harder on some capacity and levels, but at the core,
and I think as a founder, you are the one putting the level of pressure. You are the one deciding how much or AI you put into your job. So that capacity and that level of autonomy probably also plays a big role, right? Because I think we know our vision on Nova, on AI, on productivity in the future. But in these uncertain times that we live, I can understand how, as an employee, you don't know what the other is thinking. You don't know how this is going to impact your world. You don't know if your boss is really trying to automate your work and lay you off. So I can relate to that uncertainty. Actually, by the way, Lenny's research, they had researchers, which I guess these are more like AI research. It's not probably the same type of academic research we have, but they were among the most anxious people. I don't know if maybe starting to see how AI has become so powerful that we are all doomed. But they were designers and researchers were among the most anxious.
Yeah, also I can relate to that. I was speaking to many researchers, Novas at Oxford. It's true that the trend goes in the direction where they are more and more leveraged and they get things done faster and everything around AI, as we also saw Claude releasing a product for scientists. But the step from there to running autonomous researchers, of course, you need that maybe lateral thinking and maybe seeing some correlation. But I think machines are getting more and more capable of doing that as well. So I understand why researchers are worried.
And I think their job as ours and everybody's is turning from IQ, where I think IQ played a big part on research and science, to agency, right? I think the value is in deciding what to do, what not to do, and getting things done, rather than exactly abstracting what needs to know or what's the cleverest way to reach one solution. AI is just better than us in that. Cool. No, but great discussion. I think we needed it. I think we can wrap it up here. Any reflections from you?
I think from today, I think the reflections overall, given the Italian week we had, it's to see how one group of great individuals in Italy managed to pull off something that is historical and will have spillover effect on the entire ecosystem. So I believe that the excuse of Europe doesn't have capital or we are smaller or all the things that we usually mention at conferences, it's true that we definitely have a gap in some areas. But when you're able to hire top talent and keep them motivated with a good strategy, you can go and IPO to the Nasdaq. So I think it's a good wave of optimism for Southern Europe in general and Italy specifically.
No, very much aligned. And I think that couple with what we discussed about Carles is also a call for ambition, no? Like, if you're ambitious and talented enough, there's so much more you can do and achieve. So I think that was a great inspiration. And probably on the other side of things is this worry of how the political landscape is evolving. That that I carry as a bit of a weight on both Europe but also the world where we're going and how the US is starting to intervene. That worries me a bit. I hope we can manage that.
Even in the FIFA World Cup with the red card.
I mean, now come on, that was total. Yeah.
Out of
the level of corruption at FIFA is something to be studied in the books of history. That football attracts, since it's kind of, everybody likes football, attracts a certain type of people. But it's crazy how Trump can influence a tournament like this. I was very happy to see Belgium winning. And we'll see against Courtois if Spain can do something on Friday. So good luck to the Spanish team.
Good luck, and thanks for joining to the audience. See you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.